Oh, so fabulous.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel once again. It's your girl Dumebi. If this is your first time coming across my channel, you're welcome. I do hope you decide to subscribe. And if you are a returning subscriber, you guys know that I love you. It's so good to have you here. Welcome back. So I came across this video by this beautiful Nigerian American girl. You know, she's in America. And she raised a topic for discussion. And I think this is one of those productive discussions we should be having as opposed to the diaspora wars that don't even make sense. So let me just go ahead and play her video.
I don't know if anyone thinks about this as much as I do, but as African kids living in the States, when we have kids and stuff, how are we going to keep our culture alive to like the extent that our parents did when they came to the States? Because it's like, you know, a lot of us can just like understand our language but not speak it. So it's like, how do we now transfer that to our kids? Or when it comes to cooking, I know my mom, like she has people in Nigeria that send her ingredients from Nigeria for her to like cook with. When I get older and I have my own kids, who's going to be shipping me stuff from Nigeria? Who over there is going to be sending me the stuff that I need to cook? Or it's like traditions, for example, kolana, the tradition of, you know, serving kolana at the hall parties. The person who does kolana, they say it in Igbo because kolana doesn't understand English language. So who's going to be our guy that does the kolana tradition in Igbo? I just feel like our culture is getting like so watered down because it's like not all of us were taught everything about, you know, African culture, what to do. And it's just like kind of sad because like, dang, what's going to happen with our kids? How much of the culture is going to get passed down to our kids? And then from our kids, how much is going to be passed down to their kids? Does the culture kind of end with our kids or like their kids? Because like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just kind of sad. Like, how do we fix that? What do we do?
Okay, so I watched this video and I was like, I can understand where she's coming from because I have cousins, I have family that are not in Nigeria. I have some that have not even been in Nigeria ever since they were born, you know, and it's when you think about it, it's kind of sad because these people just know Nigeria from what they hear from their parents or what they see on TV or the internet. They don't have any real connection to Nigeria. Do you understand? And some of them probably might even be ashamed of Nigeria, of being African. Some of them might be ashamed of their roots. That's a whole other video. But now, one question I have for this young lady is, okay, don't you have family in Nigeria? Because she asked some questions. She said, who's going to send foodstuff to her the way someone does for her mom? This is why you're supposed to still be in touch with your family over here, even when you're there, you know? Like, my family over there, we still talk regularly. They know everything that's going on. You have to keep in touch. You have to build a relationship. And Africans, we are very family oriented and we don't just believe in the nuclear family. We believe in the extended family. So this is why you should have a connection to your cousins that are still back home so that you'll definitely have people that one way or the other can chip in and help whenever you need stuff sent. That shouldn't be the only reason why you should even want to be connected to your cousins in the first place. But you guys get what I mean. It's actually quite sad because even the language too can get lost by virtue of not really having people to speak it with. But there are some parents that make it a point of duty to go the extra mile to make sure that their children learn their languages. You know, there are some parents that'll be like, okay, outside of this house you speak English, but once you're under my roof you're going to speak Igbo. There are parents that do that. And do you know the sad thing? As a Nigerian who has been living in Nigeria all her life, I don't even speak my language fluently. Yes, I'm ashamed to say it, but I'm going to put it out there, and there are a lot of us like that. And it's mostly because maybe some of us didn't grow up in home. I'm from the east, but I'm living in Lagos State, which is in the west. So I didn't grow up with a lot of Igbo being spoken around me, number one. Number two, my parents, I won't say they didn't enforce us speaking the language. They will speak the language to us, but we responded back in English. And then at some point, you now get to a certain level in your life where you realize, okay, I need to learn my language. And then maybe you start to try, but you get laughed at by your friends or by people who speak it better. You get mocked and then you just give up altogether. So that's a common phenomenon actually with a lot of people. They get shamed for not knowing how to speak the language when they actually grow old enough to realize, okay, I need to learn, and they try to attempt. So it's not an excuse, but I'm just saying. But one thing that my parents did, which I thank them for, thank God, that's why I can speak my language. I would say I'm like 70% if I'm to rate myself in the Igbo language, okay? One good thing I'll say my parents did was, even though we were born and raised in the West, when it was time for university education, my dad said, "You all are going back home." We had to go back to the universities that were located in the East. So I schooled back in my state of origin. So that is why I was able to meet the people and mingle and even learn the language to a certain extent, because everybody's speaking Igbo. So you just have to speak your Igbo, no matter how bad. Just piece the words together and sharp. Makes sense. They will understand what you're saying, even though they might look at you like, this one obviously doesn't come back home regularly, but you would be understood one way or the other. So that was how I built up a little confidence in speaking my language. I'm not still fluent, but you can't speak Igbo and I won't understand what you're saying, and I can communicate, right? So that's another thing. It's not just a diaspora people problem, but of course it's worse for people over there in the diaspora. We over here still have some connection to our culture, more connection to our culture and our language and all of that here, right? Let me just play some of the stitches of people that responded.
How are we going to keep our culture alive?
As a child of Nigerian immigrants who is married and is in my pop these kids out era, let me give you some of my tips. Number one, food. How many of us really know how to cook our local delicacy type meals? When I actually got into my marital home, I had no clue how to cook anything Nigerian, so I actually had to learn. It was me and CCME on YouTube and the ingredients I got from Southwest.
You guys check out CCME. She's awesome. If you want to learn about Nigerian food, learn how to make Nigerian food, check out CCME. I think CCME, and maybe I'll write some other Nigerian YouTube channels that teach how to cook Nigerian food. You guys check them out if you're interested.
From Southwest Farmers Market trying to figure it out. Take a weekend, try to figure it out. If you fail, eventually you're going to get it right. Number two, language. I know how to understand, but I really suck at speaking. I don't have the confidence, and I'm not in a place right now to really venture too deep.
Believe me, it takes confidence to start to speak when you know you're not that good, because you might get laughed at. Till now, my husband still laughs at me sometimes when I mumble some words and he's like, "What are you trying to say?" I'm like, "Come on, stop."
Into that, but I'll brag on my husband for a minute. My husband takes weekly Igbo classes. Y'all, the resources are out there. He literally speaks with somebody who is based in Nigeria to learn Igbo and to improve and practice his Igbo. And he only pays $15 per a week for the sessions. The resources are out there. And then even for my baby, do y'all know they have Baby Shark and Igbo on YouTube? There's so many resources now for these kids to start learning and getting used to things. As my baby is learning 1, 2, 3, I want him to be learning Ofu Igbo Aito at the same time.
Ofu Abo Ato Ano. That's like the numbers in Igbo.
The resources are there. Number three, consider investing back home and getting a home back there too. I think it would be so beautiful to be able to have a home that my kids would be able to go to during the summers, spend time with cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever the case may be, and really have that time to connect with the culture. So maybe consider that being a goal. My last tip is, if you're in the marriage process or whatever the case may be, I strongly advise having your traditional wedding back home. There was just, I can't even begin to express how beautiful it was for me to get married and become one with my husband in the land of my ancestors. And not only that, let's be for real, I think it's almost even cheaper than trying to get married abroad. Use that as an opportunity to reconnect with your culture, to reconnect with family back home, and really stay in tune with things. And it's also a beautiful memory for me to be able to share and pass down to our kids and let them see the precedent we set for them in regards to navigating the marriage process.
I know some parents go to the extent of sending their kids back, maybe for a few years, to even go to school there. You go to school there, for a few years. I don't know, it's good to live abroad and all of that, but I feel like it defeats the whole idea of you wanting a better life when you leave and then you go and become a stranger to your people. I feel like people should try to come home as often as they can. I know it might not be cheap, but as often as they can. If you can come once in 2 years, at least once in 3 years, that's something. Let the kids come. Spend a month, spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks, reconnect.
But as African kids,
I think about this all the time. Me and my friends talk about this topic all the time. And it's very scary, if we're gonna be. A lot of us who are first generation, what's the likelihood of you marrying like another Kenyan? If you're Kenyan American, marrying another Kenyan. If you're Congolese American, if you're from Guinea, if you're from Nigeria, if you're from South, anything diaspora, let me know the success rate. Let me know. Because it's just so hard. Like, it's hard because you have this feeling of like, am I fully Kenyan? Am I not fully American? Like, when you're in, like,
I kind of empathize with them because I feel like they have an identity crisis when you're Nigerian in a foreign country and you don't really have a strong connection to home, and you will never fully be from that country because, I mean, you look different, you sound different, your culture, no matter how watered down it is over there, your culture still went there over there with you, right? To a large extent. So there's an identity crisis. Are you fully Kenyan or are you fully American? Where do you really fit in? These ones might let you know that you're an Americanized Kenyan, and these people will let you know that's an African person in America. So what parts can you fully claim, right?
like whether you're in the UK or America, whatever sense of diaspora, you have to adapt and be that. You have to, speak English, navigate the world as like an American person. But when you come back home, you're eating ugali and sukuma wiki, and you need to be cleaning on your knees. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I don't know. I think people don't deep how hard it actually is, like, to navigate both worlds. But this is my take, is that you as an adult, the same way you went to go and learn French in school and Spanish and whatever you need to be going to learn Swahili, you need to be going to learn Kisi, you need to be going to learn Kikuyu, whatever you are. Take the energy to go and learn it. Yeah. Because us sitting here and saying like, oh, my mom didn't teach me, my mom didn't do this, my elders, woo, they're adults, they have things to do. Like, it's a blessing if your parent could actually do it and instill that in you in your home, but not a lot of people get not a lot of people are blessed to have that. So I think as an adult, when you book that flight to Cancun, you need to also book it to Kenya. Do you see what I'm saying? And I just feel like it's up to us. You have to.
That's the actual thing. It gets to a point where my parents didn't teach me, it doesn't really fly. It flies to an extent because it's easier to pick up like languages and, routines and rituals when you're younger. When you've done them for a while, it just sticks. Learning languages, I believe, are easier for kids, like at a certain age, than when you're older. Yes. But if your parents didn't do that, you have to make an attempt yourself, right? If you can speak your language, if you can understand, that's first of all, kudos to you. Then when you can speak, at least to a certain extent, you can communicate. That's another thing. Learn how to do the dances, learn the culture, learn how to cook the food,
And I just feel like it's up to us. You have to actively want to learn your culture. When you marry somebody else from another culture, you're going to do what they do, because mostly as a woman, you're marrying in somebody else's family, but also me. I'm going to be cooking Kenyan food in my home. I'm going to be raising my children to be Kikuyu children and, loving and farmers and, being business women. And what else do we do as Kikuyus? Guy. But like everything that it is, just embody being, a Kenyan person. And like, our names have meaning, and our families have clans, and we do arashios and itegas and just so many beautiful things that it takes to be like a Kenyan person. And if you want to throw that away because you moved to a country that has a crazy presidents and taxes and things, like, it's just not, to me, it's kind of dumb. Like, we're blessed. If you have a culture, it takes the liberty of yourself to do it and to carry it on. So it's up to you whether you want to do it or not. That's my take.
This kind of reminds me of when people say, oh, American people don't have culture, Black American people don't have culture. People that are quick to say things like that. Well, if you're over there in America and raising kids that don't know their culture, guess what? You're fast becoming what exactly you're criticizing Black Americans about, even though we know Black Americans have culture, So if the culture is really something worth bragging about, you should be trying to keep it alive, pass it down, practice it, love it, spread it,
I don't know if anyone thinks about this as much as I do, but as African kids,
as a Nigerian living in America, this hits very, very close to home. I have 3 kids. With the first one, I was very intentional. I made him eat Nigerian food. I'm a Yoruba man. Eba, fufu, egusi, okra, everything. And spoke to him only in Yoruba strictly. But I'm married to an African American, so I'll speak to my wife in English and I'll speak to my son in Yoruba. It's a bit challenging. I have two sons and a daughter. Over time, I kind of just forgot to be intentional, and we lost all the gains we had. I took them home for the first time this year, just to visit Nigeria, but I always remind myself to try and make them as Nigerian as possible. Not Nigerian as possible, but understand the cultures and tradition, the food, the people, the taste, and everything, the music. We play the music non-stop. They know most of the songs, but it's difficult. But I have friends in Nigeria who have kids in Nigeria, raised in Nigeria, who can't even speak a word of Yoruba, can understand a word of Yoruba. So it's not just those in diaspora that suffer from this. Those in Nigeria too are kind of doing away with the tradition, which is quite unfortunate. But this resonates deeply with my soul. I like my kids to keep the culture, a bit of it, not at once, but it is what it is. I guess that's one of the prices you pay living in the Western world.
Okay, so just like he said, it's not just people in the diaspora, even some of us back home here. And this just reminds me, I was going to make a video that I never did because I was around when I had my baby and I took a while off YouTube. So now that I'm back, that video was supposed to be about the Igbo traditional marriage rites, how we do our marriage. So if you're interested in knowing about my culture, I'm Nigerian and Igbo. So if you want to know about the Igbo culture and how we do our traditional marriages, everything, it's a whole process. Like, if you want to know, let me know. I will get back to doing that video. I wanted to do it back there because I had just posted that I got married and people mentioned that they would like to know how we did the whole traditional marriage. So if you guys are interested, just drop in the comment section and I will make that video, because I am so happy that one way or the other I get to teach people my culture, because I know that there are a lot of our diaspora brothers and sisters that I really want to know.
We're gonna keep our culture alive to like the extent that
I've seen this video circulating, so I just wanted to offer some tips that I've done
She's so pretty. Look at her eyes.
to kind of, I guess, combat this or learn more about my culture. For the record, both of my parents are Nigerian, Igbo to be specific, and I was born here in America. Step 1, learn your native tongue. I've been using Preply. I'm going to put that right here. Okay. It's a great website where you can find a tutor for your native tongue, and they have most of the languages, most African languages as well. Step 2, learn how to make some of your favorite dishes. For me, that's either stew, jollof rice, okra soup, plantains, moi moi. Just learn how to cook some of your favorite dishes. And I got all my recipes off of YouTube.
Now, shocker. Things like stews and jollof rice and plantain and moi moi are not our traditional dishes. Yeah, shocker. You know, those are just dishes every Nigerian knows how to cook. But when it comes to those main ones that are specific to a tribe, like in my culture, we have abacha, we have oha soup, ofo nubu, ofo were, isiewu. You know, we have some core, deep, like you have to be a core Igbo person to eat this. But jollof rice, any Nigerian can cook jollof rice. It doesn't belong to any particular tribe. It's a general Nigerian dish. But if you want to go deep into like our tribal dishes, it's not jollof, it's not plantain, it's not moi moi. Okay, let's just go ahead.
Step 3, ask your parents about your family history. I feel like the best way for you to learn is to ask.
the States, when we have kids and stuff, how are we gonna keep our culture alive?
This is something I think about all the time. And so here are a couple things I think that we could potentially do to keep our culture alive. So first and foremost, I think we need to have confidence in being African. Like, gone are the days where, you know, people were calling us African booty scratchers, but we were embarrassed to say that we were African. Like, being African now is a flex. Like, it is what it is. So like, it's like, yeah, I'm Ghanaian. Like, yeah. So I feel like we need to have that same confidence and pride that our parents had for our culture that we're going to instill into our kids, that like, yeah, we still have that same pride for the culture that was, you know, introduced to us, that we actively live. Like, obviously our parents had so much pride about their culture that they wanted to make sure that like, not only were we surrounded by it, but they taught us their customs, rituals, you know, traditions, everything in that sense. So I think we need to try to do the same thing. All right. So number 2, I think the language. If you're like me, you may understand the language, but you may not be able to speak it, or you speak one language, but it's super Americanized. And so, and that's fine, right? And I think that maybe this is what we can do is just start speaking the language. Like, even if it is Americanized, even if it doesn't sound right, like, let's just start speaking it. I would love for my kids to at least be in the same position as me, to at least understand the language and maybe not feel too comfortable saying things, but at least they know everything, right? Like, I can go to a market and someone could be talking about me and I'll know exactly what they said. And I would love for them to be kind of in the same situation as that, right? At least know what your grandma is talking to you about. And I think that just comes with us just honestly trying to speak the language ourselves, making sure that the language is in our home, whether it's through music.
And I think aside just speaking the language, you need to have who you're going to speak it with, right? So this is where having a community comes to play. If you are a Ghanaian and you find yourself in America, you should mingle with other Ghanaians as well so that you guys can, have this get together where you guys get to have this African cookouts, if you know what I mean. You get to attend weddings of other Ghanaians, witness the culture. Your children get to witness that as well, get to participate, they get to meet other Ghanaians to speak the language with, right? So build a community wherever you are in the diaspora. If you're not back home in Africa, that's fine. Just have other people there. And that's one thing that I see them do. I've seen so many videos, even my cousins that are not in Nigeria that are outside as well. I've seen videos of them having a little Nigerian community there. They wear the traditional attire, they are dancing the Nigerian dances, they have people to interact with. That is another way.
Talking with their grandparents, and even like, I'm okay with my mom. Let's all sit down. My mom, my kids, me, let's learn. Let's pull our books out. Like, let's make sure we are practicing these words. Hopefully, my husband speaks the language as well, or maybe he can also sit down and learn with us. Like, it's a whole family thing that I think we can all bond on and make sure that like the language is something that we're still uplifting and at least trying to understand. Number 3 is cultural immersion. Obviously, there's a reason why there's foreign exchange programs. Like, you go to a country for a certain amount of time, you will pick up that language. And so I will drop off my children in Ghana and they will pick up the language, the culture, everything. Summers, you're there. You might even spend the first 3 to 5 years of your life there, because that's what my parents did. My parents exposed me to going to Ghana at a young age, and I just, knew exactly, what Ghana was about and learned my culture. Like, when I was there, I would even start speaking the language again because everyone around me was speaking it. So cultural immersion is like top key. And I think if we're able to afford to continuously go back home, like that would do wonders for our children. All right, so the last 2 were a bit like, we're really putting in that effort to make sure that we are doing things. This last one, I feel like it's something that could be easily passed down, and let's just not like minimize the importance of our food, our customs, our traditions. Like, I will still be having a traditional marriage, so like, let's have our kids maybe be introduced to the idea of also having a traditional wedding. I think the foods, my mom sat me down before going to college and was like, here is how you cook our traditional foods. And that's something that stuck with me. Without her doing that, I wouldn't know how to make my traditional food. So I will be introducing them to the food and making them cook it, right? And I also think our celebrations, like the outdoorings, like everything that we do, our customs, traditions, things that are not of American culture that we engage in, like continue to keep them involved in that. Let's understand what our customs and cultures are like so we can participate in them when we get a bit older. And they also know what it's like to participate in our culture. Anyway, I love that question so much. And I hope that these are tangible things that we could all think about doing, because I love being Ghanaian, and obviously, yes, I'm American as hell as well. But I mean, it's still something that's really important to me. And I really want my kids to be able to be like full blown proud and identify as being Ghanaian as well.
I think we just generally have to take pride in our culture enough to want to preserve it. If as an immigrant and you're a parent, you travel and you do not imbibe your culture in your child, your African culture, I think you have failed. I'm sorry, I'm just going to call it out. I call it as it is. You have failed, except maybe it's not something you're proud of and you're trying to do away with everything that has to do with your identity as an African person or as a Ghanaian or a Kenyan or a Nigerian or whatever. If you are not proud of that culture, that's the only reason why I feel like you won't try to pass it down one way or the other. And then as an adult, you have to also make the extra move, go the extra mile to learn things that have to do with your culture. Go the extra mile to also build a community with people that are also the same as you. You guys can interact and rub off on each other and preserve the culture. That is the importance of community as well. Wherever you find yourself, whatever part of the world you are, interact with other people of your community, of your ethnicity, of your tribe, of your country. So yeah, you guys let me know what you think. If you are an African person, an immigrant in any foreign country, in a Western country, wherever you are, what steps have you taken to preserve your culture? Just let us know in the comment section. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.